For years, we've all been told that scrubbing away dead skin is the secret to a healthy glow. But what if that advice is completely wrong? In this explainer, we're going to break down a dermatologist's pretty radical argument that the key to great skin isn't about what you take off, it's about what you protect.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. Think about your daily routine. You know, that really satisfying scrub, that feeling of getting truly clean. What if that one step is the very thing that's damaging your skin? It's a tough pill to swallow, I know, but it's the key to this whole new way of thinking about skin health.
And there it is, straight from the expert's mouth. The single most important piece of advice from the dermatologist we're covering is to just stop. Stop trying to get rid of your so-called dead skin. Now that goes against pretty much everything we've ever heard, right? So why on earth would an expert say this?
To really get it, we're going to follow this roadmap. First, we'll tackle the exfoliation fallacy. Then, we'll look at your skin's protective wall. We'll uncover the vicious cycle of overwashing, dig into the surprising history of scrubbing, learn the new 5-minute shower rule, and finally, build a whole new philosophy for taking care of our skin. All right, first up, the exfoliation fallacy. This is where we need to completely change how we think about dead skin. We've been trained to see it as, gunk, waste, something dirty that has to be scrubbed off. But that's a massive misunderstanding of what's actually going on.
See, what we call dead skin is really a layer of keratin, and its job is absolutely critical. It's not junk, it's a carefully built shield. It's our body's first line of defense against everything. Calling it waste is kind of like calling a soldier's body armor junk. It just doesn't make sense.
Which brings us to our next big idea, your skin as a protective wall. To really understand why this keratin layer is so important, you've got to think of it as this piece of brilliant natural engineering.
Our expert uses a fantastic analogy for this. He says a healthy skin barrier is like a perfect roof, with tightly packed tiles that keep moisture in and all the bad stuff out. When you exfoliate, you're essentially taking a hammer to those tiles, just smashing them up, leaving your whole house vulnerable to leaks and damage.
Here's another really powerful way to picture it. That keratin layer is like a country's border fence. Its entire purpose is to protect what's inside. Tearing it down because you think it looks better is just leaving the whole country wide open and exposed. And that is exactly what exfoliation does to your skin.
So why does it feel so good then? Well, the dermatologist explains that this super smooth feeling is basically a trick. The roughest part of your skin is supposed to be that protective keratin. When you scrub it all away, you're just touching the delicate living cells underneath. It's the same kind of sensitive surface as your lips. That smoothness isn't a sign of health, it's a sign of vulnerability.
And this is where things get really bad, because that desire for smoothness traps people in this totally self-defeating loop. It creates what our source calls the overwashing vicious cycle, where the thing you think is the solution, scrubbing, actually becomes the cause of the problem. Okay, so here's how it works. Normally, it takes about 28 days for a skin cell to grow up, mature, and become part of that strong protective barrier. But when you scrub that barrier off, your body panics. It flips into emergency mode and tries to rush out a replacement in just 7 days. And these rushed 7-day cells, they're weak, they're poorly formed, basically, they're defective. They show up on your skin as flaky and dry. And what's our first instinct when we see flaky skin? We scrub it off, which of course just removes the new weak barrier and forces the body to start that emergency cycle all over again. It's a crazy feedback loop that creates the exact problem you're trying so desperately to solve. And the real-world result of this cycle? Well, the dermatologist puts it pretty bluntly. This huge misunderstanding and all the skin problems that come from it, like chronic dryness and irritation, that's a major reason people end up in his office. But hang on. If this is so terrible for us, why are we so obsessed with scrubbing? Well, the answer isn't just about biology. It's actually deeply rooted in our cultural history. Just look at this timeline for a second. The dermatologist, who is speaking from a Korean perspective, points out that just 60 years ago, bathing was a rare luxury. A middle-class family might only take a full bath a few times a year. The whole idea of a daily shower is an incredibly recent thing. And this is the heart of the cultural argument. When bathing was something you could only do once in a blue moon, you had to make it count. People scrubbed like crazy to get as clean as possible, because who knew when they'd get another chance? He says our bodies remember poverty. That whole mindset of scarcity has been passed down. even though most of us now have showers we can use anytime we want. So knowing all that, how do we break the cycle and actually adapt to our modern lives? This brings us to the really practical part of all this, a new set of rules for washing. And we're going to start with the most important one. 5 minutes. That's it. For a daily shower, our expert says you should be in and out in 5 minutes. 10 at the absolute maximum if you have really long hair to wash. Just this one change stops you from stripping away your skin's essential oils and that all-important keratin layer.
The other rules are just as simple. First, get rid of any abrasive towels and scrubs. Just toss them. Second, use soap or body wash only on your torso. So, from your neck down to your groin. That's where the oil glands are really concentrated. Your arms and legs, they just need a simple rinse with water. That's it. And finally, always moisturize after you wash to support that barrier you're now working so hard to protect.
You know, following these rules isn't just about changing up your routine. It's about adopting a completely new philosophy for how you even think about your skin in the first place.
This whole thing really comes down to a fundamental shift. The old way of thinking was all about removal. It targeted so-called dead skin cells with harsh, abrasive scrubbing, all to get a feeling of temporary smoothness. The new philosophy? It's all about protection. It targets the skin barrier with gentle cleansing, aiming for long-term health.
And that really leaves us with one last question to chew on. Now that you know that smooth feeling is actually a sign of a damaged barrier, and that scrubbing just locks you into a cycle of damage, you have a choice. Is that fleeting feeling of smoothness really worth the long-term cost to your skin's health? It's definitely something to think about the next time you step in the shower.